In today's video, we'll be looking at a prescribed text from the OCR Classical Civilization GCSE, the Myth and Religion section, and more specifically, the Foundation Stories topic. And this prescribed text is Plutarch's The Parallel Lives, the Comparison of Theseus and Romulus. So this is a picture of each. This was written by Plutarch, who was born in 50 AD in Boeotia in Greece, which at that time was a Roman colony, and he had many roles. He was a priest of Apollo, he was a philosopher, but most importantly for this video, he was a biographer. And his biographies focus on character and illuminate moral virtues and vices. And they are structured as a comparison between the lives of an illustrious Greek and an illustrious Roman. So it's a comparison between the Athenian hero Theseus and the founder of Rome, Romulus, and it's having a look at their lives. So these are structured with different points of comparison, and these are sectioned into chapters. There are 6 chapters which we will cover in this video, and then afterwards we will look at how to approach a 15 marker on this topic, which is from a past OCR Classical Civilization paper. So the first point of comparison is the greatness of their deeds. And Plutarch suggests that Romulus's greatest deed was killing his great uncle Amulius, or as he describes him, the tyrant of Alba. But he says that this was only for Romulus's own benefit, as he had suffered greatly at his hands. And Plutarch even goes on to say that Romulus only achieved great things out of sheer necessity, which he contrasts to Theseus, who killed numerous terrible tyrants and monsters, for example, Sciron, Sinus and Procrustes, which can be seen earlier on in the Foundation Stories section on the Kylix of Theseus, for the benefit of others that he didn't even know. He could have chosen to go to Athens by sea rather than by land, which would have been an easier and a safer route, or he could have chosen just to stay in Trojan and rule safely there rather than venture all the way to Athens. Now, some suggest that he only killed these tyrants and monsters and only even took this route so that he could make his name as a hero. But Plutarch doesn't really suggest that a desire for glory and honour is actually such a bad thing, which we'll look at in a few minutes. And one of Theseus' greatest deeds was fighting and killing the Minotaur, which was a big threat to Athens. Every year, the Minotaur was fed youths and maidens who were shipped from Athens to Crete, and Theseus himself went as one of these youths, so he literally presented himself as a sacrificial victim, as the only way to fight the Minotaur and to save Athens from this burden, which shows, I think, extreme bravery, and I think Plutarch agrees. And in terms of their fighting, Romulus fought the Sabines and Acron, but he suggests these were deeds only for the benefit and protection of his own city. And he even really only fought the Sabines because Romulus and the Romans invited a nearby tribe, the Sabines, to come to a festival and then abducted their women because they had no women for their city. And this resulted in a fight. Theseus, however, fought for the whole of Greece and even really the whole of civilization against what was known as barbarism in the Centauromachi, the battle against the Centaurs, and the Amazonomachi, the battle against the Amazons. So we can probably conclude that Theseus did the greatest deeds. And I think this quote nicely sums up Plutarch's opinion. There was no word grand enough for his courage, or greatness of spirit, or sense of justice on the behalf of the common people, or yearning for honour or excellence. So as I mentioned previously, this desire for glory is not necessarily a bad thing and can actually be seen as a heroic trait. So the second area of comparison is their leadership. Now, he doesn't suggest that actually either of them were excellent leaders. Theseus he describes as a demagogue, one who rules by stirring up popular opinion and disturbs government procedure. I think this is best described by saying that he ruled by mob rule, essentially. Whereas Romulus was a despot, one who rules with absolute power. So to conclude, neither were model kings, despite their statesman-like natures, as Plutarch describes them, but Theseus does come off looking a little more admirable than Romulus here, because Theseus's rule was the result of easiness and goodwill, whereas Romulus's was the result of selfishness and severity. The next point of comparison is reasons for their misfortune, which is essentially a focus on each of their morality. So he suggests that Romulus and Theseus both share a hasty and irrational temper, but it comes out in different ways in each of their lives. So Romulus ended up killing his own brother Remus as a kind of competition for who should found and govern their new city that they were founding. But Theseus only exiled his son Hippolytus, Plutarch suggests, and this wasn't caused only by his temper, but also by love and jealousy and the false accusation of a woman. This woman is Theseus's wife Phaedra, who was fallen in love with Theseus's son, her stepson Hippolytus. But because he doesn't love her in return and she is quite ashamed of her love, she ends up committing suicide, but also incriminating him and accusing him of rape to save her own name. And Theseus believes his wife and he curses his son Hippolytus. Plutarch suggests this is only the curses of an old man. However, in reality, Theseus actually curses him and asks his father Poseidon to curse him, which actually results in Hippolytus's death as well, because a bull emerges from the sea, which Poseidon sends and kills Hippolytus. So in conclusion, Plutarch suggests that Theseus is the most moral, neither acted well, but he suggests that Romulus was far harsher in his actions than Theseus was. The next point of comparison is their achievements. Plutarch says that Romulus rose to greatness from the lowest beginnings. Romulus and Remus were known as slaves or the children of swineherds when they were living in Alba Longa, but then they rose to found a highly powerful city which had a great empire which Plutarch lived under in Boeotia in Greece. And also, when he was founding his city, he took homeless people into his city, which we can see as an honourable deed. But Theseus, on the other hand, actually inherited Athens, so he didn't found it himself, it was already well established. And to expand the empire, he destroyed, to expand like Athens's rule, he destroyed other cities instead of kind of encouraging people into his city. So in conclusion, Romulus appears to be have the greatest achievements, and that we can see here that there's actually a shift of favour towards Romulus, where it has previously resided a lot with Theseus. And he had the greatest achievements, particularly from a low rank in society. So the next point of comparison is relationship to their family. So Plutarch suggests, which is a direct conflict with chapter 3 in which he describes him definitely killing his brother Remus, he suggests here that he actually may not have killed Remus, and there are rumours circulating that he was not to blame at all and it was someone else who killed Remus. He then goes on to describe that Romulus released his mother from prison. His mother is Rhea Silvia, and she had been imprisoned for breaking her vow of chastity as a Vestal Virgin. And he also re-established his grandfather Numitor on the throne of Alba Longa after Numitor's brother Amulius stole his throne. However, he then suggests that Theseus actually didn't treat his family well at all. He caused the death of his father Aegeus. So on the way back from his trip to Crete, where he killed the Minotaur, Theseus promised to put up white sails if he was successful, or his crew would put up black sails if Theseus had been killed by the Minotaur. Theseus was successful, but he put up black sails instead of white, ignore the text on the screen, on his return to Crete, and Aegeus was under the impression that Theseus had died, so he jumped off the Acropolis. Plutarch even then mocks the story that some Athenians suggest that Theseus wasn't wasn't to blame for the death of his father, and that Aegeus actually tripped and fell off the Acropolis. So the conclusion here is that Romulus treated his family better. And the final point of comparison is Theseus's and Romulus's relationship to women and gods. So we'll start with women. Theseus does not come off well in his dealings with women. He abducts and rapes many women, including Helen, who was the daughter of Zeus and Leda, while she was a child and he was an old man, because Theseus believed that he should have a divine wife. He also abducted Antiope, who was an Amazon. There are different stories. Some suggest that she went with him willingly, and others suggest that she was given to him by his cousin Heracles. He also abducted Anaxo, a woman of Troezen, with her children, and also the daughters of Erechtheus and Kepkrops, who were ancient founders of Athens. He also abandoned Ariadne after she helped him kill the Minotaur. This is mentioned in an earlier chapter, but he suggests that actually it was no fault of his own. It was the gods' fault that Ariadne was in love with him, and Theseus had to leave because Dionysus wanted to marry Ariadne. But here Ariadne is brought up again as a kind of fault of Theseus. So there we can see Plutarch's unreliability, if we want to talk about that in a question. Theseus also deserted his mother when he went to Athens, and he caused war after some of these abductions, particularly the abduction of Helen. Her brothers came to bring her back. And Romulus snatched 100 Sabine women when he was founding the city of Rome. But Plutarch suggests that this was okay because he only took one for himself and was faithful and loyal to her. And instead of causing lots of war, he influenced others to be faithful too. So in their dealings with the gods, in terms of Theseus, Plutarch suggests that it was against the gods' wishes for Theseus to be born, because there was a prophecy which told Aegeus not to sleep with foreign women, and then he slept with Aethra, the princess of Troezen, and Theseus was conceived. Instead, Romulus was, as Plutarch suggests, blessed by the gods. He was saved from drowning when a baby. So in conclusion, Romulus is the winner of this section. He is blessed by the gods. And according to Plutarch, he makes up for the abduction of 100 women by being faithful to his wife eventually. So this is a question from an OCR Classical Civilization past paper, and this is the longest question that will be on the paper, and you'd get a choice of two. So the life of Romulus was more admirable than that of Theseus. So if you want to pause this video and perhaps plan this question, what you might say, I'm going to go on to how I might approach planning the question. So hopefully you've come back after pausing and planning your question. This is maybe how I would lay it out. So I would look at the positives and negatives of each one. This is more summarised, perhaps a little more objective than Plutarch, as I put there, spun by Plutarch. This isn't immensely detailed, but there isn't that much time for a 15 marker. I would look at the positives and the negatives, but it is also very important to directly compare. So when you're planning, it's good to create links between these two.